Welcome back to the Kickstart podcast. On this episode, we have the pleasure of hosting Ryan, a serial entrepreneur who has built and scaled companies that got acquired before becoming the head of sales at a couple of fast-growing companies like Vidyard and Hypercomply more recently. But today, he is the CEO and co-founder of Quill, the #1 AI platform for recruiting agencies. Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, super happy to finally meet you both after some back and forth emails with me fighting businesses away.
We made it happen. We made it
Yeah.
happen. Now, I want to talk about Quill later, but I got to ask the #1 AI platform for recruiting agencies. That's ballsy. So before
Yeah.
sharing too much, what are you guys building over there to give the audience a little teaser?
Yeah, we're right now we just surveyed our customer base and they're saving 8 hours per week per rep on average by automating their most hated tasks, such as note taking, applicant tracking system, field updates, and then crafting like really strong candidate submittals as well.
Oh my God. Yeah. You said a lot of words that are just super triggering, very manual, very time consuming, a lot of time sinks in there. We'd love to learn more about that. So
Yeah.
I guess let's backtrack.
Sure.
For those that are unfamiliar with who you are, would you just mind sharing a little bit more about your background and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so I've been kind of a sales kid ever since I was born, I think. So I would do like the newspaper thing, and then I'd be like, I don't really want to listen to the route I have to take. So my first business as I think a 10-year-old kid was going to Walmart's clearance bin and looking at cat food for $1 and then going to the aisle and being like, how much is this cat food regularly? And it was like $10. I was like, whoa, there's some arbitrage I could have here. So I bought like 5 bags of it and then went door to door in my neighborhood without my parents knowing, selling it for $5 a bag. Sold all of them to this one old lady that I think was just felt sorry for me. And then I ended up trying to recruit all my friends. So it was my first recruiting experience to, hey, do you want to sell cat food door to door with me? And then that quickly got shut down when my parents found out. So that I've always been kind of entrepreneurial sales, got into software sales out of school after I started some of my own companies while at university. So I started a marketing company selling to real estate agents, doing advertising for like new condo developments. Wasn't something I was passionate about, so I ended up selling that when I graduated university to another agency based in Toronto. That was my first like small acquisition, not life-changing, but an interesting experience. And we didn't want to become insurance experts, so we spun that down and got real jobs.
Are you struggling with getting responses from clients? Are you an established recruiter who is struggling to break 6 figures and beyond? Are you looking to start recruiting part-time and you don't know how? Do you feel burned out and stuck spending hours and hours each day in manual tasks like sourcing and outreaching and feeling like you have no time to actually run and grow your business? I am absolutely happy to announce that we have launched our own recruitment, educational, and coaching program to help you on your journey. We made sure that everything I've learned in the past 10 years, the tips, the strategies that really helped me build multiple 7 figures of placements on my own desk with some of the best companies in the world will be included in there. We'll also be including things like how you can build an acquisition system that brings in clients every month to your agency hands-free, how you can maximize the probability of a positive close during negotiations, how you can automate and outsource your day-to-day operations so that you don't have to spend hours per day researching or sourcing, how you can figure out the new and modern way to scale your agency that minimizes risk and maximize your upside potential. And we've also included much, much more. The best thing about this is not only will you be getting amazing content, but we will also handhold you and be with you every step of the way to make sure that you are held accountable and you crush your goals. We'll also share with you our own tech stack, tools, and plugins we actually use, plus everything else we know about automation and AI to help you save time, work smarter, and not be a slave to your business. The exciting news is that we've actually rolled this out to a select few people earlier this year, and I'm excited to see them well on the way to multiple 6 figures, with some breaking $30,000 to $50,000 per month already. So if you're interested to be a successful recruiter that can dominate in any market conditions, make sure you click on the link below to chat with another member of our team, and we're happy to chat with you to see if we can help you out. Make sure you jump on this really quickly. See you on the other side.
I even made like a peer-to-peer rental application while in university that got funded by the school, where you could like rent cameras to like your neighbors or rent like anything. And then we realized if someone steals someone's camera, who's gonna pay for that. And we didn't want to become insurance experts. So we spun that down and got real jobs, which is what brought me to Vidyard as a business development rep, just cold calling, did a ton of stuff there, broke the all-time record for meetings booked in my first month and quarter, grew that team eventually to 25 folks under my management, then was in software sales after that too. So
Wow.
lots we can go into.
Yeah, no, if you don't mind, I love the fact that you mentioned retail arbitrage. I feel like a lot of business owners today get their start doing that. Now, what was impressive is you did that when you were 10. Now, I did a fair amount of that. It's all about going into like Marshalls or TJ Maxx or Target and walking around with your phone and kind of scanning and then scanning it on eBay or Amazon and then just
Yep.
buying a bunch and putting it in. That's super cool. But like, so are your parents entrepreneurial? Like, how did you start at such
No.
a young age? Like how you just had that drive and that energy? You had
Yeah, I
that.
just had that. I had that drive. Like my mom has a really good like business mind, I would say, but she was like she's been a project manager at different like corporate companies. So by no means like an entrepreneur starting like businesses or anything like that. Super hardworking, competent person, just like doesn't have that entrepreneurial desire, I would say. Specifically the risk tolerance side of it. My mom's very risk adverse. I would at least say she'd probably disagree with me. And then my dad was like a factory worker in like northern like Toronto area. Worked at the same company for like 30 years. So again, risk tolerance probably not there. I was always the one saying, "Oh, I want to do this," and then my parents like, "Are you sure? That sounds pretty risky." Specifically when I quit my head of sales job at a tech company that had a $350,000 a year salary to make nothing to start my own business. I think that was a little bit of a shock for them. But yeah, so no real entrepreneurial family, I would say.
That's so fascinating because usually it's like the dad or someone, if not the dad, like a family friend that's entrepreneurial, or maybe you have a close friend. But the fact that
So
both of your parents have
I did
careers.
have like I would say I knew people in my family friend group that were more entrepreneurial. So I actually the woman that cut my hair since I was like 0 years old, her husband, he'd always be like walking around the house while she's like cutting people's hair and like I'd be like, what do you do? And he's like, "Oh, I'm just a real estate investor." And he owns, I couldn't even imagine how many properties, but that's all he does for a living. And his wife cuts hair because it gives him like another side of income and she likes talking to people. But they're like super successful and you'd have no idea. Like they drive like 20-year-old Honda Civics, like they're like kind of low-key millionaires. And I was going to university, so I already had some of the entrepreneurial experiences before this. I was like, I don't really know what I want to take. I don't know what I want to do with my life. Everything sounds like terrible. All these jobs. It sounds like I'm going to be trapped in like a jail for the rest of my life. And he actually gave me the book Wealthy Barber. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like a finance book around just like investing and like how you can, even as like a barber, which isn't someone that probably makes like 500K a year,
Mhm.
how you can get rich just as like kind of in any job. And that's what made me addicted to reading like business books.
Mm.
So then I think I read my first year of university like 52 books in the year, like one book a week,
Wow.
all nonfiction business books, which hence the library behind me.
And when you're at university, I know you started two companies while you were at school.
Yep.
Were you in the mindset of like, oh, this is something fun, maybe it'll grow into something? Or were you like, I am going to build this so I can drop out, make it big? Like, what was kind of the mindset in your head at the time?
My mindset's always just been like, I don't want to work for someone. I felt like it would be like a trap. Like I want freedom, like location flexibility. So actually, funny story about my, before I actually went to Vidyard, after like I sold my marketing agency, before I sold it, well, actually, I'll back up. The original reason why I started it, because we didn't want to get jobs at like Starbucks and things like that. Because we're like, we want to go out on Friday night or whatnot. I don't want to have to work at like a restaurant or on work on the weekends. So I ended up just sending a bunch of cold emails to people that had bus advertisements for their real estate firm saying, hey, if you want to actually get new clients, you need to be doing Facebook advertising. Having never run a Facebook ad in my entire life, I'm saying this.
Nice.
And then the top team in the city in Guelph, Ontario, emailed me saying, hey, like, yeah, we're actually looking for someone. We're looking at X bigger firm, like a 50 employee local firm, but would love to have you come in and present what you do in a couple of days. So I was like, okay, sounds good. I got a Udemy course for $14 a month. And learned everything you need to know about Facebook ads, whipped up a Wix website saying we are the real estate advertising firm, and went in, pitched them, got a $1,500 a month retainer plus advertising budget that they committed. And that's how that business started.
Amazing.
Wow.
And I just kept scaling it. I actually did a good job. So people would refer me, like they would refer me like their realtor friends and all their condo developers that wanted to do ads. So did that for a couple of years. And then I wanted to potentially move to Thailand and live the digital nomad lifestyle after I graduated. So a month in Thailand, I kind of just, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but I kind of screwed off for the lack of a better term. And everybody started firing me because obviously you need to provide value to your clients and like focus on them, which I was not doing at that time. So then I actually ran out of money and had to come back to Ontario early. And that's when I decided, okay, like what do I want to do with my life? I do not want to do this real estate advertising thing. I get super bored by it. Let me sell it to someone else while I still have something going. And let's start thinking about what I want to do next.
Wow. Thailand. That's super interesting. Why? What brought you out there?
One of my friends, actually still to this day, does like affiliate marketing.
Mm.
So he just does affiliate marketing, classic like digital nomad type of business.
Mhm.
He was like, yeah, like let's go Thailand. It's like $500 a month for like an apartment, super cheap once you're there. So you can live for a long time and try to build up your business. So that was the idea behind it. But when you actually get there and you're like, oh, I'm going to go to the beach, I'm not going to focus on my business, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
So learnings as like a young entrepreneur, making all the stupid mistakes that you can.
Yeah, but honestly, I think the biggest takeaway is that you just had an idea and you executed and you're like, I'm just going to figure it out as I go, right? I
Yeah.
think most people are too afraid to even take that first step.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that you just basically trust out, you're like, yeah, I could do this. And you're like, oh my God, I got it. And then now you're scrambling. I mean, that's what it is. You just took action and you made the most of it, which is super cool. Like, would you ever, what a lot of people talk about is kind of like the international arbitrage with respect to talent. Now that
Yeah.
you have experience living in Thailand, do you also sometimes think you might start another business out there, or maybe even expand your current business to more international teams? Because now it's more easy than ever to get like international team, high quality folks on your team
Yeah.
with, a fraction of the budget, right?
I think there's a large arbitrage for high quality talent. A lot of people look at non-domestic talent as like, oh, I'm going to have them build this spreadsheet for me or like very low value work. That Thailand experience, I also had folks overseas helping with my marketing agency at that time. So I've already was kind of doing that from an employee standpoint to do like social media posts, graphic design, stuff like that on Upwork and Fiverr at the time. That kind of taught me how that can actually be utilized effectively. So right now, Quill, we have 8 Canadian domestic employees, and then we have 22 contractors across the world, mainly in like regions like Pakistan, India, Brazil, and other like LATAM based regions. And it also allows us to support a global customer base, right? Because we have customers in Australia, we have customers in like Belgium, kind of anywhere. And like for a small team, you can't support all of those time zones unless you effectively use offshore talent and hire like senior people offshore, like folks that have managed teams for the job that you want them to do. That's what we've seen the most success with. Because then they're just the talent density in your organization is going up even more so than it would if you hired everybody domestically. Because usually you have to sacrifice quality to keep the costs down.
There is still like a really bad just assumption that international talents are just worse in quality, which is getting proven wrong more and more and more today, right? And I think the second you say, I just hired someone internationally, everyone also assumes, oh, it's just a VA, right, Ryan? Right? Like it's not just all, you can't just lump everyone into like being a VA for you. I think with the right training, with the right hiring, you can absolutely find mid to senior or higher amazing people internationally to crush it on your team. And then of course, yeah, the secondary benefits of like being in a different time zone also helps with the team cater to more of a global audience, right?
I also feel like people set these arbitrary ceilings for what they're willing to pay for offshore talent too. Like if you say, oh, I'm going to hire someone in the Philippines or any of these classic offshore places, like, oh, the maximum I'd pay someone that's based in Philippines is $1,000 a month or something like that. Well, why? If you could find someone that managed 30 people for the role that and like is wanting to build out like an org and you have that need over time, why not pay them $3,000?
Yeah.
And they're going to be over the moon about it. They're going to switch their current job, which they're probably getting 2,500 because they are a senior person. But now you're getting someone that would be like 500K here for that price, right? So it's a win-win scenario. We have people on our team that are in like individual contributor roles that have managed like 25, 30 people at other orgs.
Wow.
We just pay them a certain level that most other companies are like, I'd never pay that to like an offshore contractor, but it's like, why not?
Hmm. Hmm. And then from your perspective, you have someone who is not only ecstatic but fulfilled, but also they're just never going to leave now because you're taking so good care of them.
Yeah.
So
And
I
a
think,
lot, I think that's a management philosophy. To your point there, I hear a ton from the folks that have been offshore on our team today and then the previous ventures that I've just used offshore talent for as well, that how people are treating these folks is very different than how they treat their domestic talent, which is something we try to just completely change. Everybody goes to the exact same stand up, everybody gets treated the exact same way. Yes, you're in a different location. Yes, you're a contractor, but they're a part of the team just as much as anybody else.
yeah, I really don't vibe with a lot of companies that are just, treating them folks as not the same level, the othering, just treating them as if they were lower just because they're internationally. I think us as industry leaders or businesses in general just need to make more of an effort to just shatter that
Yeah.
perspective, shatter that assumption, because like you can find amazing people and you can find when I say amazing, I don't mean just international. You can find amazing people, period, that competes even with domestic talent. And I think if you're in a situation where you can not only find people but treat them well, even pay them more than what any other business would pay them, man, it's a win-win-win-win situation.
And for like customer facing roles, I think another conception is like how good are they at speaking X language, right? Like let's say you're in North America, obviously a lot of your customer facing chats are going to be in English. A lot of companies in certain locations, like I know Walmart has different international locations where they literally pay for their contractors and employees to take English lessons and like accent training and things like that. So you'd be shocked at the English quality of some of these regions. You just have to know where to hire from. And if you're struggling with that, why not pay a couple $100 a week for someone
Pay
to,
that premium.
yeah, like pay for their English accent training, right? Like, why not? If they're super talented, have a really high horsepower, there's different ways that you can accomplish what you're looking for in a way that's not hiring someone for 500K that you don't need.
Yeah, unfortunately, people and companies place on the team members in relation to how much they're paying them in terms of their
Yeah.
salary, right? So it's like, oh, if I pay you 30K, you're more valuable than someone I pay internationally 5K a year, right?
Yeah.
Because of that, I'd be more willing to be patient and invest in your long term Mr. 30K instead of the 5K who can be almost as good or maybe perhaps even better long term if you also gave them the same opportunity.
Yeah.
So like
And
this is just
I think
awesome. And I know that we're taking a little tangent here, but I think like this is definitely top of mind and something that
yeah.
I'm really passionate about as well when it comes to like elevating hiring and international, and that goes well beyond our own domestic borders.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And the other thing I was going to say is like treating these folks in a way that keeps them around is also a lot easier to meet the requirements of someone that is used to be treated like terribly. They're much more appreciative and you can go the extra mile and they're going to be super grateful around it rather than a new grad that was thinking like me, where it's like, I feel trapped in this job. I don't want to be here anyways. It's like the attitude difference is huge. And then also the work ethic is just so great. And like, for example, when I was at Vidyard, I was managing 23 people, including 3 sales managers, and I was 24 years old. The reason why I was successful is just because I was willing to work hard and I was grateful for the opportunity. Offshore talent, like they have those ingredients. So they shouldn't be overlooked. It's not always the answer, but they shouldn't be overlooked.
Mhm. Now, how do you feel like AI fits into the picture, right? Because I think like you got businesses. So let's say you have business in North America and in traditional businesses, you start an idea, you scale, you hire more domestic talent. And now more people are hiring international than ever. And now because of AI, they're like, oh, maybe like we don't have to hire at all. Maybe we can just create all these AI agents and
Yeah.
we can just expand the fulfillment capacity for our team and also for the customers and clients that we're servicing. It's a win-win. So what are your thoughts with that?
Yeah, so our own BDR org, I can give you an exact example of this. So how we would book meetings in the early days, we have different pipeline strategies now, but was a lot of just like cold outreach because it's the least expensive. So we had 2 BDR.
Yeah.
They were based offshore and they would go doing a classic like Apollo or Sales Loft or Outreach. If you know any of these sequencing tools, just go down the list and click send, click send, click send,
Hmm.
give them a call down the line. Now, what we then did into phase 2 is we use use tools like Nooks, which is like an AI power dialer that discovers if someone's on the other line, then it will quickly patch you through. So you can make 3 times, 10 times the amount of calls that you would be able to manually.
Oh,
So
wow.
rather than hiring 4 more BDRs, we instead just use Nooks to make those 2 existing offshore BDRs more productive. Same thing with things like Clay and Instantly. Those are tools on like the email prospecting side that are really useful. Rather than having them click send on every single message,
Yep.
we would do a ton of upfront work in personalizing every message for every contact using Clay. We'd have them QA that to make sure there is not funny business that we've all got in our inbox before saying like, hey, nice to meet you, first name. We don't want any of that. That's not professional. So more and more, they're becoming the manager of the process and outcome rather than being a part of the process and outcome. We now promoted the one person to be an account executive. So they sell to some of our smaller customers that are looking at us. And the other person just kind of orchestrates everything now. They just have like this big machine that she's managing and doing an incredible job because we gave her the opportunity that she wanted and was hungry for, that she put up her hand for. And a lot of people just think, okay, nope, there's no more BDR positions. It's like these people are able to adapt and do way more than you think that they can if you give them a chance.
Do you think we're tracking though to a scenario where you might not need BDRs anymore? Or do you feel like it's still more of like a best of both worlds situation where there is, again, depending on the role and the scope and what
Yeah.
you do, there's still a lot. I would say most people can comfortably say there's still a lot of work AI needs to do to ever even get close to completely replacing a human being. So for your business, for your work, for what they have to do you think looking into the future, BDR just might go poof away and be replaced?
Yeah,
Or
I would say it already has in the context of what people think it is, right? Because we all have an idea. What is a BDR? What is an agency recruiter? What is X, right? Well, those things don't go away. If you break that down into individual tasks, like tiny, tiny individual tasks, that is going to get augmented a ton. And if you're an agency recruiter or BDR or sales rep that's like trying to just do the tasks that you were doing before, you're going to get absolutely pummeled. You need to adapt with the technology that's augmenting you to allow you to focus more time, either by actual hours and volume from those hours, or from those hours getting more quality outputs. So for example, rather than having a BDR at Quill click send on a bunch of emails, now the ones that are replying, they're able to call and make more effective messaging towards, or the ones that watched a video, they're able to actually make a call. So they're just changing what they're able to focus on for the better. And they also probably prefer doing that over clicking send 100 times a day. So that's why I think people have a binary look around like, will it replace X or will it not? No, like that's not how you look at it. There's a spectrum of tasks that each role does. How is AI going to augment that spectrum? And then what can you do now with that extra time?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, especially when you look into a recruiting lens. What a BDR does, what a recruiter does, it's zoomed in. There's just so many manual individual steps. Right. And the crazy thing is, as a BDO recruiter, historically, we had just had to do all of it ourselves. And then
Yeah.
technology comes in the picture, and then AI comes in the picture. And then instead of us exactly having to do everything ourselves, be stuck in the process like you were talking about, it bumps us up. And now it's the bottom layer is more AI, where we free up so much more time where we can focus on things that actually matter, talking
Yeah.
to folks or closing deals or making money or complex decision making.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It won't replace the things that are actually moving the needle. It will just change what you can do to move the needle. So I couldn't agree more.
Oh, I
I
appreciate.
feel like too,
Oh,
just
sorry,
one
Ryan.
last point.
I was going to say to Ryan real quick, I appreciate you having open mind and being willing to ask a very clickbaity question.
Oh yeah, yeah. That I mean that we hear that question all the time. Like, is it replacing us? But I like the kind of metaphor you had of like having the BDR now like manage the process, where it feels like we were able to take more control over what we're doing. Because I know, especially if you're starting out as a BDR, it feels like you're just doing X, Y, Z. Like you're just doing whatever you're told. But now there's this ability for you to actually take control and say, all right, let AI do what AI can do better than me, and then I'll focus on what I can do better than AI. So I like that the augmentation and really just the importance of adapting with AI. It's not going to replace us, but yeah, you do have to change a little bit. You have to kind of say, what's the game plan here? What can I do better? What can it do better than me?
Well, also for the phone providers, right? Like we work a lot with like phone providers by the nature of what we do at Quill. And the fact that like the idea that an AI is going to make a cold call, the regulators are going to pick that stuff up like crazy and just block those calls call, like, because it's also, think about it in like a consumer oriented, like calling like your grandparents and scamming them out of their money.
Mm.
Right? Like that same technology can be used to cold call a candidate or a customer.
Yeah.
So the regulation that will get there, I think, will block any of that type of stuff happening in a way that has any longevity to it. It might happen in a short stint, but I think it will quickly get interrupted.
Yeah, that's super interesting because everyone's like, oh, voice callers, voice dialers, AI, like these things are going to be so cool, but it's going to be annoying as heck too. Absolutely, like you were saying, and not to mention they're a lot of them are pretty terrible. But yeah, what is like the regulatory implications about all of this stuff? And I think like all of us, we hate getting dialed by other human beings. What makes you think you're going to enjoy getting dialed by AI? And so like if you can block other human beings calling, absolutely the same thing will probably happen in AI. It probably won't be there in the beginning. It'll feel like the Wild Wild West, but yeah, I agree, Ryan. I wouldn't be surprised if like the regulatory folks catch up.
And if it doesn't, it's going to turn into email inbox, right? Before, when mass emails were like 20% click-through rates, now and open rates, like that doesn't happen anymore because of spam filters, the amount of volume that goes out. That's right now happening to my LinkedIn email inbox. I know that's for sure. And the same thing, if they don't regulate that, will happen to the phone. So it's like, how do we stand out to candidates? How do we stand out to clients? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I just love the topics that we talked about. One thing that I just want to talk about before I forget is you've just consistently have done sales your whole life. You can argue as young as you were 10, maybe even younger, right? And this is also very applicable because recruiting is all sales. And so like, why did you continue to stay within a sales trajectory? And even like after your first couple businesses, when you went back into the job force yourself, why did you go and get a sales job out of all the jobs out there?
Yeah.
Right? And then my third question is how helpful was it to have a background in sales to launch businesses if you want to do that?
Yeah, yeah, awesome questions. So first, I always said, and you can message my mom on LinkedIn or something to validate this. I always said, I will never get a job. I never want to work for someone else, kind of like what I was saying before. So to your last question, I didn't think it was going to be helpful at all. I was almost against it and asked, why would anybody spend any time at a job? That was my young, naive opinion. Then I did a lot of reflection after the Thailand company thing happened and I sold it to the agency. I was like, okay, what do I want to do? Well, what did I have? I was like, what excited me the most? That's how I think of like how to like go more to happiness is like excitement. What excites me? What do I think is going to be kind of like a cool experience and adventure? And the thing that excited me the most at that time that I did in my life was start the tech company with a peer-to-peer rental app. Because I just think there's so much innovation happening. You're seeing this startup happen, this startup. So I knew I wanted to work in technology and specifically software. Now, Jordan, I just spent 2 years co-founding a startup in university, working every Sunday while we could have been partying or whatnot, coding this app that just failed. I don't really want to ask him if he wants to start a software company right now because I don't want to live in my parents' basement either. I want to like actually get some income. So I was like, okay, I know I can sell just based on my experience with the advertising stuff. I know I have that to bring to the table. And I know I want to work in technology. So I was like, what is a local software company that's growing really fast that has a lot of buzz? That's where I saw Vidyard. I actually applied for an internship twice there and got denied. They didn't even see it. And then the third time I applied for a BDR role, I was able to get that position. So that's the first answer to why sales, how I kind of got into there from the entrepreneurial side. So it was almost reluctant. It was like, I guess I have to do this. From there, it has helped me so much to start a business, just knowing how actual a business development org operated and how to manage people and how to talk to your colleagues. And then I got a fortunate opportunity to manage not just individual contributors, but also managers throughout my time there. And I had great mentors that have been doing that for 10, 15 years that I could have never successfully figured out if I just started Quill then and somehow made it successful to now actually managing individual contributors and managers. I just would have no idea what I'm doing. I'd make everybody probably quit within a week. So huge learnings from that side, just how businesses work. Also, when I was a head of sales at Hypercomply, I was in board meetings, right? So also hearing that dynamic around how investors are looking at a company, what they care about from a board perspective was super helpful as I went to raise money for Quill, just knowing kind of what those talks are like, and then just knowing how to sell. It can't not help you to be able to convince someone someone to take a shot on a product that is barely built at the time.
Do you think if you didn't go to Vidyard and Hypercomply, you just started Quill, it would still have been successful as it is now?
No, no way. I would have failed for sure. I would have failed for sure.
So then what is your thoughts when people are like, you don't really need a job, let alone a string of jobs to start a company, right? There's two train of thoughts. It's like, hey, if you're an entrepreneur, you wake up one day, you're just wired in our DNA. It doesn't matter how many jobs that you get, you can just start a business and you'll be successful. And the other track are like, hey, if you really want to start a business, the smart way is have like a semi-career first in a role, work at different types of companies, small and big, learn how they run, and then you take that knowledge and leverage it into a company. Is there a right or wrong?
I think there's a nuance here. In order to be successful and start a company, you need to have the ability to eat glass. Like you just need to be able to I think Elon Musk says like, yeah, my job's kind of like staring into the abyss, right? He does a lot more difficult things than I do. Let's get this straight. But it is like eating glass. Like you're just constantly getting rejected. People are constantly telling you this isn't good enough. This isn't there. You don't have a great idea. 90% is losing. And then 10%, if you're lucky, maybe 1% is like small little wins that give you a glimmer of hope. So that's like the entry ticket requirement that a job isn't going to give you. You just need to have that built in your DNA in at least some respect. Then you have to have the ability to learn, to actually hear feedback, hear them say that sucks about your product, pattern recognize, and then be able to improve and figure out how to. Those two things is what, in my opinion, is the ground truth of like if you can be an entrepreneur or not. And not everybody has them, and that's okay. You're probably better off not having them because it's not easy to have those things. But where I see the job thing flowing in is you need to have people that have seen you work, gain a reputation, and are willing to bet on you. And not necessarily bet on you in a monetary way. From my perspective, Vidyard's CEO and CTO, they're venture investors too. They have Garage Capital, which is one of our venture capital firms. So when I was quitting Vidyard to go to Hypercomply as the head of sales, Michael Litt said to me, hey, I know you're going to start a company one day. When you do, please call me. I would love to invest. So I knew I had someone in my corner because he saw me go from a BDR to the head of like a sales department there for 4 years. So I gained that reputation. So even if he didn't invest in me or have that financial backing with his venture firm, he could open up so many doors for me if I ever wanted to start a business. There's another person in my network that I consulted for during my time at Vidyard as a manager and during my time as head of sales at Hypercomply, helping get their sales team off the ground. And when I quit my job at Hypercomply as head of sales, he called me. He's like, hey, do you have a quick minute? I'd love to write you your first check. He's a prominent angel investor.
Wow.
So you have to have those people that believe in you. And the only way to get that is to make someone else rich first. So that's what I view as my job, like what I did in my jobs is I grew the Vidyard SMB department from like $1 million ARR to like 9 million ARR with the help, of course, of the team and other individuals in 3 years. That makes the Vidyard founders very wealthy. I also helped this other individual's business go from 100K ARR to like $1 million ARR, right? That makes them really wealthy. So now they're willing to bet on me as a person for introductions, financing, things like that.
And so you didn't really have folks like these in your pocket before Vidyard and Hypercomply? Because you also did a lot of things before, right?
Yeah, not in tech. I had the real estate friend, stuff like that, but nothing that I was like innately actually passionate about, that I was willing to just work while other people were like, why are you still working? It's Saturday. Like the only thing I would do that for is starting like tech companies or working with tech companies. So you need to have those people in the pocket of the industry that you want to go after.
When
All up here too, really quick, Ryan. So I know when you left Vidyard on the way to Hypercomply, the founder was like, all right, you're going to start something, let me know. So if you knew, okay, I'm going to start my own thing, what made you go over to Hypercomply? Why not just leave Vidyard and, then start Quill? Like what made you make that leap over to Hypercomply?
So the learning going from, I think a job is stupid to, wow, I just learned a ton at Vidyard. And now I have all these incredible connections and mentors that I never thought I'd possibly have, to now Hypercomply. Like Vidyard, I took a team from like, let's say 7 AEs when I took it over because my boss left to be like a VP of sales at another company. And then I grew that the rest of the way. But it already had like product market fit. Like it was like the business as a whole was already at like 15 million ARR, something like that. So it was a big business already. I was just working like a untapped segment of their business that I grew, right? And starting a business, you have to figure out that 0 to 1, at least in some respects. So going to Hypercomply, I was like the 20th employee. It was still very much like earlier days. They just raised like a seed round. I felt I could learn closer to that 0 to 1 in a more professional environment in tech. Because I did the 0 to 1 stuff at my marketing company, but that was a completely different world. And like I was kind of pretend business. So that's why I went to Hypercomply, because I also would have been exposed to actually being the guy responsible. I don't have a VP of revenue to say, oh, he told me to do that. I'm the guy that's making all the decisions and communicating that to the board. That's another thing I never knew. So when I was raising money for Quill, when I quit, the back channeling in the tech ecosystem that happens, hey, I know you were an investor in X. I know what's Ryan like. All the back channeling came back with flying colors, which it wouldn't have because people wouldn't have known me if I didn't go do that job.
So I guess then after Hypercomply, you're like, you know what? I'm in a good place. I was able to kind of check off, have a deeper dive more in the tech 0 to 1, able to expand my network. Now you feel confident to execute. Does that kind of happen organically?
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting right when like the software economy really hit the fan, like in a bad way, is when I was kind of thinking about all of the best businesses were founded in like bad times. Like if you think about Stripe and all these other like iconic companies, they were started when the economy was really bad because many people can't raise capital as easily, so there's not as many competitors out there. There's all these things working in your favor. It's actually harder to get initial customers, which actually is better in the long term because people won't give you money just to give you money because they have a lot of freedom and flexibility in their wallet. If they're giving you money, it means you're really solving a core problem. So it means you're onto something. So I knew, I was like, hey, this actually is probably a good time to start a business because I did know I had these relationships that I likely could raise where other people outside of the industry couldn't raise money. And then they were doing some restructuring at Hypercomply. So there was going to be some decisions that needed to make about who is going. So because I was already kind of thinking that way, I was like, hey, keep the core team, let me kind of head out and I'll go on my own.
I actually agree a lot with what you said about starting a business in tough times because that's where you really create the good habits, good discipline, and most
Yeah.
importantly, that good product, right?
Yeah.
And in a tough time, there's less BS, there's less hype.
Yeah.
You can either deliver or you can't, right? And if you're able to, and then of course, like from a business standpoint, it has you focus less on, I just need to raise more funds to more about like, what's our path to profitability? Like truly, like what is our honest to God GTM strategy? How do we
Yeah.
make first couple sales? How do we get the money into the account, right? And then you're able to really kind of create those good disciplines and good processes. And then once the economy picks up, it's all gravy from there. So I think I would rather like start a business in a tough time than starting a business when everything's bullish and then it crashes and you're like, oh my God, right? Then you have to scrap.
Charge on per user, for example, in software, charge per user, and everybody's laying everybody off. Your business is taking a hit. Whereas let's benefit from the upswing for sure. I couldn't agree with you more.
So why recruiting?
Yeah, by accident.
By
I
accident.
had no idea I was going to start a business that only sold to agency recruiters. No idea. So how it actually happened is in my experience as a sales manager and leader, I had to force my team to update the CRM. So it was like, hey, Salesforce or HubSpot, whatever CRM you're using, constantly I'd go in to check a deal that we're forecasting is going to close that month. And there's zero notes. There's nothing filled out. And it's like that person's now off sick or whatnot. How am I supposed to fill in on this call? So there's always those things that were happening. And rather than spending time doing sales coaching and like skill coaching, I was spending time doing note coaching, like, hey, fill out the database. So that we quit and started actually as a company called Sales Queue. That was what Quill used to be called. So if you're a Quill customer, you would have signed like a Sales Queue Technologies Inc. sales order. So you would know. And what we did is pretty much what Quill does, but for software sales teams. And what we noticed is we're getting some traction. We were doing decently well. There was no real problems blaring, but we had a recruiting firm come to us that was using Bullhorn for Salesforce. So we integrated with Salesforce. So they're like, hey, can you do this for us? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. We checked it out and it all worked. And they became our biggest raving fan. They absolutely loved what we were doing, screaming from the rooftops about how we've like changed their process. Because for a sales leader, yeah, you're updating the CRM so that deal can be treated effectively. But for a recruiter, the database is so important for like candidate searching in the long term to actually make sure you're not so reliant on like LinkedIn credits, LinkedIn recruiter credits and whatnot. So they started referring, that customer started referring us all of their agency recruiter friends in their association. And they started asking, hey, do you integrate with Quil AI? Do you integrate with Loxo? Do you integrate with X, Y, Z? And we just started building the integrations. And then our recruiting segment caught up with what we did in revenue in a year on the sales side. It caught up in 2 months.
Really?
Oh my goodness.
So we sent an email to our sales-based customers and we said, hey guys, we are pivoting the business. We are only going to sell and build for agency recruiters going forward. We will still support you if you want. If you don't, like, you can walk away. It's all good. We're sorry. Here's someone that we recommend from a competitor side that's more focused on it. And then we made that. My team was scared. Like, my team was like, what are we doing? I signed up to work at SalesQ, not Quill. So it was a little bit of a crazy situation. But yeah, we completely pivoted. It was the best decision we've ever made.
That's so funny because usually when you see a lot of PR or headlines of new tech in recruitment, it's always biased on corporate internal TA teams, right?
Yep.
I think like us agencies, sometimes we get the leftovers or we just get overlooked, even though there's a huge market out there. So my question to you is like what have you learned about recruitment agencies as your customers and prospective users compared to other prospective customers and like for a regular, software play? Is there anything about the market that's unique to you that you find interesting or fascinating, or it's all the same?
Yeah, so I think the workflow is extremely important for agency recruiters. A lot of them aren't as tech savvy as, let's say, selling to like a software company. So one thing that we do is we do one-on-one onboardings with every single one of our customers. So we have an onboarding meeting, then we also have a check-in meeting, and then we have another check-in meeting to make sure everything's okay. So we invest heavily into like customer onboarding because some folks are super tech savvy in the agency world. Others have been running their business for 30 years. And like learning how to do a new tech is the least of their worries. If it's going to help their team, they're willing to do it and they're happy to, but they're not going to click around and figure it out themselves. So the self-serve model just does not work. You could make it work if you wanted to, I guess, but you're definitely not optimizing in that regard for this specific vertical. They really like to deal with people, which is probably why they're in recruiting. So giving them the level of care and dedication to say, hey, I will sit on a call with you for 30 minutes, or if you need 3 hours, I'm game. Let's get this set up together. It has been a massive game changer. And it's the reason why we have such like good retention. I think because just like setting someone up from the start is really important. Where in software, that was not the case selling to software sales teams. They wouldn't want to talk to anybody.
So are you guys all in on agencies, or are you also going to plan on expanding to corporate internal TA teams too?
We do not sell to corporate TA teams. We only sell to recruiting agencies. There's other like folks in our space that do both. I think it's to your point though. Like if you look on like website, it's like all corporate logos, but we also sell to agencies. You can also use us too. Whereas for us, there's a specific set of problems that an agency has that an internal TA team has zero of, such as business development calls, such as like actual like comprehensive intake calls, these other aspects of what an agency recruiter does versus what like corporate TA does. That just makes zero sense for them to build. Also our integrations, right? Like that's why we integrate with the agency ATSs rather than the corporate ones that folks typically overlook because they're like, it's nice if we can get them as customers, but we don't want them.
Yeah, no, it's refreshing, Ryan, to hear from a founder like yourself. You're like, you know what, we want to intentionally go after agency and just agency.
Yeah.
A lot of it is recruiters, but also agencies. For you, it's like and it's just so refreshing to hear.
Yeah.
Because it is a huge market. There are hundreds and thousands of agencies around the world, and it's growing, right? Every year. And there are, of course, a lot of software and tools that have a lot of overlap between both worlds, but there is also some that are just going to excel in the agency world. And a lot of it is because recruiting agencies, it's sales. And so like, you're totally right. Like, internal TA teams, they don't need to use a Salesforce or any sales or track anything that a lot of the stuff that we do. And so the fact that, you know that and you're double down and you're also leveraging your previous sales experience. I mean, I think it's just a no-brainer why you're building a business that happened to be in the recruiting agency space. I think that's really
people thought I was nuts before. Like when
you know
they're
why? The crazy thing is, right? Most people, first of all, don't even know recruiters even exist. And second of all, no one really knows even how big this industry actually is.
no.
So then when you go out there and you're like, I want to start a business, they're like, Brian, it's dumb. It's stupid. Isn't there like just 2 agencies in the world or something? Like,
yeah.
Right? Like, what's your TAM, right? Like,
Well, that's the VC community, right? Like they're like, whoa, you're definitely going to go after this. It's like, well, no, not really. But can you build like a map? Yeah, absolutely. But Yeah, that's why I think to any venture-backed company that is in recruiting, they have a skew towards corporate for that reason alone. It just makes their VC pitches easier.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping that, folks like yourself can make the recruiting agency world more mainstream, more sexy to the
Yeah.
tech and VCs out there. So
Hopefully.
people who are unfamiliar with Quill right now, just officially, would you be able to share, like, as of taping of this podcast,
Yeah.
what does Quill do and what are some of your main features and products?
Yeah, absolutely. So Quill's entirely built for agency recruiters just to be more efficient from an admin perspective and their day to day. So what that means in specifics is we'll automate note taking on any type of call you have. So if you have an in-person meeting with a client or candidate, if you have a phone meeting with a client or candidate, if you have a video call meeting, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, Zoom, Google Meet, etc., we'll record, transcribe that call, just like a lot of these horizontal tools would do. We take it a lot further than that. Then we summarize it in a way that's built for your specific type of meeting that you're having. You're going to want to take notes very differently for a job intake meeting than you will for a specific interview. So a lot of note-taking tools out there, they'll say compensation was discussed. What was the compensation? We'll actually tell you the specific things that you care about every single time. And then we'll organize that information into your applicant tracking system in CRM, even down to the fields that you need to update. So if you have like drop down fields, multi-select fields, we'll automatically detect the answers to those based on the conversation you had to completely remove that admin side of your workload. And then what the big time saver is you can tell Quill, hey, this is how I prefer to submit candidates for this role. This is the writing style. This is the format. Here's how I want to rewrite resumes with the information learned from the interviews because they miss some key things that the client actually cares about. Quill will automatically actually produce those things in your writing style and your format right after the call in a branded way so you can easily submit clients. So that's how we're saving the average recruiter 8 hours per week.
Wow. And what are some exciting new features that you guys are rolling out? Any teasers for the audience?
Yeah, so we have a lot of things coming specifically on the submittal side. So more data sources. So being able to pipe in the resume information that you have today much easier, being able to multi-tie multiple calls to have better data sources, and then even branded shareable pages. So rather than just being able to download a branded PDF, you can actually create a unique URL that can give you insights around how your clients are actually interacting with those submittals. So if you have one client that's telling you your candidates suck, but they're not reading the submittal, you'll know. So that's some of the really short-term things, tons more on the ATS integration side, and then some cool business development stuff in the more longer term that I'll leave ambiguous.
Okay.
And I love too the expansion you have here because the when I first heard about Quill way back when I was like, oh, AI note taker, like that's cool. But now to hear like that's just like the first domino of many is super exciting because note taking on its own, like that's a huge time saver. But then to be able to use that information productively, and that's like I think that's where the biggest savings really come in. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it's like now we have this data. What are the cool stuff we can do with it? Yeah.
That's where the fun happens, right? That's how it starts.
Yeah, that's Jordan, the mad scientist, helping all the agency recruiters on our side, our CTO.
So how do you draw the fine line of like spreading yourself out too thin, chasing all of these things versus being super focused on one or two things? Like, do you have your own philosophy about that or any like system or rubric that you follow?
Yeah, so we look at, I won't give specifics around like maybe some of the things that we look at, but the biggest thing from a high level is we look at what do we feel our core competency is? What's our core competency? What's our unique advantage in the market that allows us to do things that other people aren't able to do? From there, we look at what are folks asking for? And then is it in our core competency or is it in someone else's core competency? And that's how we decide what to build. Like, for example, a lot of folks ask us like, hey, like, are you going to build an ATS? Do you want to be an ATS? It's like, it's not really our core competency. We can allow these ATSs to have the data that we structure for them, and then they can then make like AI searches in that database. For example, rather than having like Quill be queried around, find me a VP of engineering that has these qualifications.
Yeah.
Why would we build that when we're organizing that information into a separate system and all of those systems are telling us that they want to build that? So go have fun with that. We're going to build other things that are in our unique advantage.
So a couple of questions about Quill as a company. So do you guys have a physical office?
We used to. So when we first started, funny story, it was Jordan and I. We lived kind of like 2 hours away from each other, so we got an office right in the middle. That's an hour away from him and an hour away from me. And then we had a first hire in mind that was in BC, Canada. We're in Ontario, Canada, so that's like a 5 hour flight. And we weren't actually going to offer them the position just because they couldn't come in office. So we actually told him, hey, unfortunately, we have to turn you down. And he said, hey, no, I'm going to move to Ontario so I can work at Quill.
Oh my God.
We're like, are you sure? You have a significant other there. Is she going to come? Nope, I'm going to come. All right. Like, if you want to come, you can come work with us. Our investors were telling us we should be in office for context, which is why we were so hard pitched on that. And we didn't know that ahead of time, which is why we started interviewing folks all in Canada. So after 6 months, we told that person that they can go home. They don't need to be in office. And we canceled our office just because we felt it was just too long of a commute. We could be productive remotely. So now we have no physical office.
And is that kind of your core belief now? You like just pro remote?
Yeah, we would have lost on that engineer, and he has been an integral part of the team. An amazing, amazing person, rock star, built some of our most customer loved features, and we would have literally not hired that person because they were in a different part of Canada. That would have been super silly of us, in my opinion. So that's why I give you that context. And yeah, like we won't have an office.
And for companies like yourself that are working with a handful of investors, for the audience, what is that like? And do you have any tips or advice on how you manage your relationships with your investors to make it a win-win situation?
Yeah, I think it's going eyes wide open, right? Like, don't try to pull wool over people's eyes. Like, some of my investors laugh with me. They're like, you're the only founder that I've ever worked with. And some of our investors have been doing this for quite a while that sends investor updates every month before the month is even done. So if March 31st at like 10 p.m., I'm going to be click and send on an investor update and being the first person to get them an investor update out of all their portfolio. And it just builds so much trust. It's like, hey, here's the metrics. We don't change any formatting every time we send the number, good, bad, or ugly. Even when we were kind of pivoting, those were some funky investor updates to send, but just be super transparent. And I think that's the big thing. I think the mistake I see fellow founders making the most when dealing with investors is picking and choosing what to tell them. They can't help you if you're picking and choosing specifically the bad out of the equation. They expect things to go wrong. You're starting a new company. No company is easy and straight line. So I would just, yeah, don't pick and choose what to tell them. Be honest. It will earn their respect and they'll be there to help you.
I also think it's easy for a lot of people to assume that investors are just there to give you money and they provide no additional value whatsoever. But I'm sure a lot of your investors are probably strategic, or maybe they have significant experience in this space or similar spaces, right? And they can actually help you make better decisions. But then to your point, you just have to like be honest with them and don't BS them, right? Because you can tell them what they want to hear, but then if it's all rosy, then not only are you being transparent, but like you're not being transparent, but you're just not giving them a chance to actually let them provide you more value.
And use their feedback when you're transparent with them as a data point, not what you should do. That's the other side of this. Like, your investors are your investors. They're not the CEO, right? Like, a lot of times they'll be like, hey, I think you should do this. Or good investors will say, this is what I've seen. These are some outcomes I would suggest. Not like, I think you should do this. A lot of investors will say, I think you should do this, such as don't focus on agency recruiters. That is not always the thing you should do. So you have to also know that I've given the investors all the information. I've been transparent with them. I've heard their feedback. I have a bunch of data points now. I'm going to listen to my customers the most, and I'm going to make my own decision, and I'm going to live with that. And then telling your investors, like, hey, like, I totally respect your view. I believe we have to go this way. And having the conviction to do that, I think, is another big mistake that folks make, is they almost put too much salt and weight into someone that by the nature of their job is only meeting with you oftentimes every 3 months for a board meeting. So they don't have the same level of context as you.
But I can also see where they're coming from, though, because there's for a lot of people, a huge power imbalance. Like, because you're giving me the money, you have all the power.
Exactly. But it's not.
Whereas that's not how you run a business. You got to keep your ears to the market and to the data of your customers.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to like push them aside and put your investors on a pedestal because they're the ones keeping you alive. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's why it's important to work to get to things like cash flow positive and things like that. Because for founders that have that natural default of thinking that way, it can kind of release them a little bit and be like, no, okay, like, our customer is the number one stakeholder.
Agreed. So for someone like you who's done multiple businesses, do you feel like you've come to a point where you learn to manage stress better, like eating that glass, stepping on glass? Does it feel any less painful, or you just have better band-aids to be able to utilize when needed?
No, it's still terrible. I think if anybody says it's not, let me know their number. I'd love to have a conversation with them. But I think now the only difference is I recognize the pattern. So I find myself, oh, if only we can figure out this, or if once we get to X revenue, then it will be easy. I've thought that way my entire life, entire life.
Same.
I've never figured out how to remove that. I need to go to a lot of therapy, I think, and figure that out one day when I have time. But right now, the main difference for me is I just like, yeah, I remember when I said that about X and Y, and I still feel this way. So it's like, it's gonna be okay. Just like keep stepping forward, keep taking action. Action gives you information, which allows you to make better decisions, as I'm a big believer in. And you can't let the stress get in the way of it. But when you're really trying to find your like ceiling of like potential, you're always going to feel that way. You're always going to feel that way.
I don't know how we all got programmed to think like if you hit a certain revenue or you hit a certain milestone, everything becomes perfect.
It just,
I don't know where that comes from. Like I really don't. But whereas like the glass is always going to be there, the pain will always be there,
yeah.
right? And I think you learn to manage and you learn to be more aware of yourself better as you get older and more experienced. But yeah, that is so funny because like people can. I was just talking to a good friend of mine. He works at Amazon, right? And he has experience starting startups too and working at early stage startups. He's like everyone thinks companies like Facebook or Meta or Netflix, Amazon, they're like perfect. Like everything works perfectly, work-life balance, great, good salary, like. But he's like Amazon just feels like a huge startup, you know?
Yeah.
Same problems, but like they're just amplified.
Yeah. They're just more zeros on the end.
There's just more zeros on the end, and the pains are even more ouchy, and the wins are everything's amplified, right? On
Yeah.
both spectrums. And so, yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So, I guess going back to Quill, one of the things obviously that we know very well is just recruitment agencies as a whole, they're very price sensitive. And so, for the people who are listening to this and they're curious about Quill, would you be able to kind of share like your pricing structure? Like, how does that work with you guys?
Yeah, so it's a per user price, and it really depends around how big the firm is. So the most anybody pays us is $84 per month. The least someone pays us, like we work with some like massive recruiting firms, is more around like $40 per month per user. The biggest thing that we say is $60 a month or whatever it is a no-brainer if it saves you 8 hours per week. And if it doesn't save you 8 hours per week, it's definitely a no-brainer not to do it. So that's why we require everybody to do a free trial. So do a free trial and then see how much time it saves you. And if it's a no-brainer, great, but there's no hard feelings if not.
Okay. And if somebody
That's
wants
awesome. I
to
love
reach
it.
out to you, Ryan, like if someone wants to reach out to you, like where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you go to www.quil, so it's like the Quill pen with one L, not two, .ai. And then you can book your free trial there. Feel free to message me on LinkedIn. If I don't get back to you, my LinkedIn is a maze. Just keep messaging me, or preferably just go to the website and you'll be taken care of.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that the audience does that. And I guess if anybody is listening and they want to follow in your footsteps, whether it's having a successful career in sales or starting multiple companies, what is the biggest advice you want to give to all of us?
Yeah, I think if you look at someone in my stage of life and career now, you're like, oh, wow, like I want to go from where I am to that. It's like, that's not how it works. You didn't see the 10 other failures of the cat food door to door and the things that we just don't have time to tell you about, all the embarrassing business failure stories. So if you're creating action, you're feeling uncomfortable, you kind of feel like you're eating glass a little bit, you're on the right track because it means you're finding your own potential ceiling and just keep going until you find that ceiling. If you want to start building a big business, eventually it will happen, but you're not going to win every battle. You're probably going to lose 10 times before you actually find the one that wins.
One more time, how do you feel about that? Because a lot of people can listen to your story and be like, oh my God, he made it sound easy. But then you know your own story. You know the late nights, you know the sacrifices you had to make your whole life. And sometimes I'm sure you even get, comments here and there saying, you make it look easy, Ryan. You're lucky. Like, you found the right investor at the right time. Like, what would you say to those folks?
Like, I would say, hey, that's fair. That's fair. And then the ones that like actually want to do it and will do it, because it's only a small percentage of people that are actually willing to put the amount of work in that it takes, will actually ask how. Like, how did you do it? This is what I'm doing. Like, what am I doing wrong? What can I learn? And I'll always have an hour a day to talk to those people. But the folks that are like, oh, you're lucky, da, 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 it's like, okay, that's fair.
Let's let it be.
You can't make someone be an entrepreneur. You either have those two ingredients that I talked about or you don't. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. Honestly, it's easier not to have them, as all three of us likely know.
You're either selling cat food at 10 years old or you don't got it. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you have to, there's multiple ways to get there, but I think it's like coming to those conversations with curiosity rather than judgment and like a blanket statement without education.
I love that.
Yeah.
You just keep on going, never give up.
Yeah. Just keep making action, and then that will produce information. You learn from it, and then you make another action.
Well, Ryan, I definitely enjoyed this conversation. I felt like we could have spent another hour just talking about retail arbitrage, but we came to our senses and we covered the more important stuff. But you have a really impressive background, and yeah, from all the businesses you've done to the careers in tech, how you got into it, how you're able to maximize leverage most of these experiences to launch Quill, to understanding, hey, despite all odds, sometimes it's difficult to have those conversations with investors, the most important people, but to really be true to that data and true to your customers. You're building a rocket ship here that helps us agencies just do what we do better. And for me and Ryan being in the space, we're definitely excited to have met you and continue to be excited to continue to work with you and support you in any way possible. And we will absolutely root for your continued success into the future, but definitely appreciate your time and hoping to keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. It was a lot of fun. Have a little bit of PTSD. I need to walk off after this conversation.
I hope it's not from us, Ryan.
No. It's from the stories. It's from the cat food and everything like that.
Thanks for clarifying. I appreciate that. But yeah, Ryan, I appreciate it. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon, okay?
Yeah, we'll chat soon. Thanks, guys.